Thank you for watching QTV with the news. My name is Diana SUMBWE. We take a look at stories making headlines. Parliament has unanimously resolved to urge to prohibit internet service providers from prescribing expiry dates on internet bundles. Vice President Inonge has commissioned an ethanol processing plant in SUMBWE district that has been put up at a cost of over $9 million United States dollars. And political historian Bizek Piri has noted the need for stakeholder consensus in the constitution refinement process. And now details in our news. Parliament has unanimously resolved to urge the government to prohibit internet service providers from prescribing expiry dates on internet bundles purchased by customers. Moving the motion, Nalikwanda Member of Parliament Geoffrey Lungwangwa noted the need for internet service providers to operate in a way that does not exploit customers. Professor Lungwangwa states that in this era of technology and broadband services, people communicate more using internet bundles, but that it is unfair that they should be given a prescription of how quickly or longer they are to use their bundles before they expire.
It is my hope that all honorable members of this august House will support it for the good of our country. Madam Speaker, the topic, as earlier mentioned, is that this House urges government to prohibit internet service providers from prescribing expiry dates on the internet bundles purchased by customers. The fourth industrial revolution is a data-driven revolution. This is the basis of the knowledge-driven economy. Access to available information requires possession of data and its effective and efficient utilization. The information age that the world has entered into through the fourth industrial revolution is centered on the quality and the quantity of data that one accesses. Access to knowledge from the internet by the ordinary farmer, carpenter, a student in the classroom.
And winding up debate on the motion, Transport and Communications Minister Mutotwe Kafwaya says government has heard the concerns of the Zambian people regarding the expiry of the data bundles. Mr. Kafwaya says a study conducted by ZICTA has established that 52% of subscribers who purchase 500 MB data bundles on a monthly basis do not exhaust their bundles. He notes that the motion, moved by Professor Lungwangwa and seconded by Kasama Central Member of Parliament Kelvin Sampa, has good intentions for the Zambian people. Republican Vice President Inonge says the Electoral Commission of Zambia ECZ cannot reschedule the district delimitation sittings, as this will have an adverse impact on other key electoral activities such as voter registration. The Vice President said this in a ministerial statement in Parliament on a point of order raised by leader of the opposition Jack Mwimbu on Friday, July 12, 2019, on whether she was in order to allow delimitation meetings to take place while Parliament was still sitting, thereby preventing members of Parliament from attending as they had to be in Parliament. Mrs. Wina told the House that the limitation exercise is a prerequisite for the registration of voters, which the ECZ has earmarked for 2020, and rescheduling the exercise would therefore affect the preparations for the 2021 general election, which has a fixed date provided for in the Constitution. She has therefore advised members of Parliament to take time to look at the dates when the sittings would be held in their districts and find ways of being present and participating in the sittings. The Vice President has also given members of Parliament the option of making written submissions on the delimitation process relating to their respective wards and constituencies, which can be sent to the Chief Electoral Officer for review during the district and provincial sittings.
Madam Speaker, the delimitation exercise is a prerequisite for the registration of voters, which the Commission has earmarked to commence in 2020 as it prepares for the 2021 general elections. Therefore, Madam Speaker, the Commission cannot afford to reschedule the district delimitation sittings, that this will have an adverse impact on other key electoral activities such as voter registration. This may therefore affect preparations for the 2021 general elections, which, as we now all know, has a fixed date provided for in the Constitution. Madam Speaker, a detailed schedule of the district delimitation sittings has been disseminated to the honourable members. I therefore recommend that the honourable members of Parliament take time to look at the dates as to when the sittings will be held in their respective districts and plan to participate in the sittings.
Vice President Inongewina has officially commissioned Zonkai International Ethanol Processing Plant in SUMBWE district that has been put up at a cost of over $9 million United States dollars. Mrs. Wina says government remains committed to ensuring that the private sector becomes the engine for economic development. She notes that the ethanol processing plant has potential to contribute to poverty reduction and vulnerabilities of people in the country. Mrs. Wina states that the ethanol plant that will use cassava as a raw material is a move in the right direction, saying it was one of the crops that had not been given special attention, both as a food crop and feedstock in industrial processes. She has observed that cassava has a huge potential in contributing to the country's economic development, including the enhancement of the energy sector. Mrs. Wina states that the commercial and industrial value of cassava can only be neglected at people's own peril, hence urged farmers countrywide to take cassava farming as a business and as a means of wealth creation. She adds that the new ethanol plant requires 10 tons of cassava chips per hour, thereby supporting over 10,000 farmers, adding that this would in turn uplift about 600,000 people out of poverty. She said it was pleasing to note that Zonkai International Company has also further invested about 10 million United States dollars to support cassava growers and aggregators. And speaking at the same function, Agriculture Minister Michael Katambo said the establishment of the plant would provide market for cassava, thereby impacting directly on job creation. And Chinese ambassador to Zambia, Li Ji, described the commissioning of the plant as a development towards the industrialization in Zambia. The Ministry of Labour and Social Security has dispelled media reports suggesting that it intends to hike NAPSA contributions from 5 to 10% and abolish private pension schemes. The ministry's permanent secretary, Bernabe Mulenga, says contrary to these assertions, there has not been any such proposal made by government. In a statement, Mr. Mulenga explains that the procedure for adjusting the contribution rate is only done after passing the law determining the benefits package and undertaking an actual evaluation, which should inform such an adjustment either upwards or downwards, adding that this process has not been done. He further states that there has not been any proposal to abolish private pension schemes as alleged by some media reports. The permanent secretary explains that the ministry is consulting with various stakeholders on pension reforms, and the outcome of these consultations will be availed to the public.
There was some fake news on social media which was saying that government intended to increase the contribution to 20%. Would like to dispel that as fake news. The reality is government doesn't even have intentions at the moment of increasing the contribution rates. We haven't even sat to have a discussion on that or propose any increase. But further, there was also an indication that government intends to abolish private pension schemes or occupational pension schemes. On that, again, we are saying that is not true. The government position is if a company or an organization would like to have an occupational pension scheme, the employee is free as long as they can agree with the employer. There are several companies that have done occupational pension schemes where the company will perhaps agree to make a certain contribution at the employee. And in fact, if you check our Employment Code Act, our latest piece of legislation in the ministry, it even has a provision.
The opposition Rainbow Party has given government the backing to table the Constitution Amendment Bill 2019 in Parliament as adopted by the National Dialogue Forum (NDF). Party Secretary General Winter Kabimba says having participated in the NDF, his party stands by all the resolutions adopted by the forum. Mr. Kabimba says his party particularly supports the reintroduction of the position of Deputy Minister, notwithstanding the current government austerity measures. In an interview with Q News, Mr. Kabimba, however, states that he respects the views of those who are opposed to the reintroduction of the position of deputy ministers. He further states that the fact that others think the NDF was a failure, his party does not believe the forum was necessarily a failure.
The fact that others think that the NDF was a failure does not necessarily mean that it was a failure. I support all the resolutions of the NDF as a delegate of the NDF, including the issue of deputy ministers. But I also respect those of our people who are against the introduction of deputy ministers. That is also their view, and I respect their view. For us, we submitted. That was our position as the Rainbow Party. So we'll not go back to Parliament again to go and say what? To go and say what we said that NDF is not necessary. So those that didn't go to the NDF and they have strong views about this, like others have said, the process has not been closed. They can go to the parliamentary committee and air their views. Let us learn to debate.
Some stakeholders, who include the Law Association of Zambia, have called for the withdrawal of the Constitution Bill 2019. Political historian Bizet Piri has noted the need for stakeholder consensus in the current constitution refinement process. Professor Piri says there is need for all stakeholders to work together regardless of whether a political party is in opposition or in power. He tells Q News that this means that views of political players that are in the minority in the legislative process should not be ignored or sidelined. Professor Piri, who is also a university lecturer, states that this is especially that there are already rules that have been set for making the necessary amendments to the Republican Constitution. He states that if things are done according to the law of the land, he does not foresee a situation where the constitution refinement process creates conflict in the country.
We have political parties, and these political parties are key players. It doesn't matter whether they support the opposition or they support the ruling party. They are players, they're key players. So this issue of the constitutional making process, what needs to be done is that we need to have a listening voice so that everyone else is participating. The president has been talking about he doesn't want anybody left behind. What does that mean? That means that everyone has a voice and a contribution to make. So if, for example, you are coming from the opposition, those on the ruling party should be listening. So what is it that they are saying? Why have they taken this position? How can we accommodate their views so that when we make a constitution, it is based on consensus? Everybody is part of that discussion. Everybody is part of that decision. At the end of the day, if we do that as a people, because we are all stakeholders, we are going to find that the constitution-making process is going to be building Zambia, not dividing Zambia.
The opposition UPND says its candidate in the Kamavirumbu ward by-election in Kaoma, who has resigned to join the ruling Patriotic Front, has been bought. UPND candidate Mishek Mundandwe on 23 July 2019 wrote to the returning officer announcing his resignation, stating that he had been advised to work with President Edgar Lungu. But UPND Secretary General Stephen Katuga has told Q News that Mr. Mundandwe has been bored, as evidenced by the fact that his letter of resignation was written by the same person who wrote the letter for the UPND Kaoma Town Council chairperson who recently resigned. Mr. Katuga, however, states that the decision by Mr. Mundandwe to resign comes rather too late, as his face and name will still be on the ballot. He expressed disappointment with the type of politics being participated in the country, where candidates and party members are being bought. Meanwhile, 16 UPND officials and members who were remanded in the Chinsali Correctional Facility have been released after meeting the bail conditions. The detainees, who include UPND Northern Province Chairman Nathan Ilunga, were released on Wednesday after spending 13 days in detention. They were arrested in Shiwangandu district on the 11th July and stand charged with being in possession of offensive weapons before the Chinsali Magistrate Court. Alliance for Community Action Executive Director Laura Miti says that the evidence of the people who are corrupt in government is sitting with those who hold power. Responding to the challenge by the Young African Leaders Initiative YALI for the Yellow Card campaign organizers to provide evidence of corrupt government officials to relevant authorities, Ms. Miti says the Anti-Corruption Commission and the Drug Enforcement Commission know the corrupt people in who the corrupt people in government are. She says President Edgar Lungu should therefore ensure that all corrupt people in government are arrested and put a stop to corruption. Ms. Miti says if the people of Zambia allow themselves to be distracted by politicians with questions of evidence of who is corrupt, the fight against corruption will not be won.
If you want me to repeat it, the president knows who is corrupt. The DEC know who is corrupt. We, the general public, should not accept to be distracted. We should keep insisting that the power holders who have this information should do their duty. That's what we should be doing. Because as it is, at any given time, we keep getting distracted. Ms. Celia says she wants evidence from where she sits in cabinet. So if the president honestly does not know who's corrupt, maybe he needs to resign so that somebody who cares about this country and who's competent enough to do the job can take over. By the time the general public sees the FIC report, for example, all the details of who is corrupt, their name, where they live, down to every detail, has been given to the president, has been given to the DEC, has been given to the Anti-Corruption Committee. As we sit right now, the president knows exactly who is corrupt. The ACC knows exactly who is corrupt. The DEC knows exactly who is corrupt. Unfortunately, though, the public accepts to be distracted with these questions about evidence. The evidence right now is sitting with all power holders, and that is the reason why there's a yellow card campaign. If you want me to repeat it, the president knows who is corrupt. The DEC knows.
The Ministry of Information and Broadcasting Services has clarified that there is currently no access to Information ATI Bill, but a draft of what the legislation should be. Permanent Secretary Chanda Kasolo says the ATI Bill has therefore not gone missing, as some people are claiming, but that the Ministries of Information and Justice both keep a copy of the draft. Mr. Kasolo states that the draft will therefore only become a bill when it is eventually taken to Parliament for enactment. In an interview with Q News, Mr. Kasolo has explained that for now there is a lot of work that is being done to ensure that the draft does not contradict other existing laws once the bill is enacted. Mr. Kasolo has since reassured the Zambian people of government's commitment to having the access to information law enacted. He adds that government equally remains committed to ensuring the country has a law on media self-regulation.
No, access to information bill is not a bill yet. Let me just make that clear. It is a draft, and that draft went to cabinet. Cabinet passed it the way I told you they did. They did not adopt it yet. So they said, go and finish these little things. When they finish, it will go back. Now, when you ask the Ministry of Justice, where is this bill? They'll tell you it's with us, but it's not. We have a copy, of course, of what we submitted. But, and I told you, I was in one meeting where we had all sorts of government wings, including some security wings, of course, and discussed, the way forward with it. And they said, yeah, we'll do it, and we'll do it as quickly as we can. Now, I told you, they have a lot more important bills to deal with. The NDF items are heavy. They're very heavy. To craft out the legal jargon that will please everybody has taken time, and I'm not surprised. And, when you have so few qualified legal drafters, it is always going to be a delay. There are many bills that are on a delay. If you ask me tomorrow how many, I could go and ask, and there's probably 20, 30 that are pending because it's a process. No,
the Jesuit Center for Theological Reflection, JCTR, says Zambia has little choice but to increasingly embrace agriculture value chain development as a platform for spurring economic growth and addressing the challenge of rural poverty. Speaking at the Stakeholders Dialogue meeting on linkages between agriculture and manufacturing value chain addition and its potential for national development, JCTR Program Manager Innocent Ndashe says agro-industries have the potential to provide employment both for rural and urban population, not only in farming but also in off-farm activities such as handling, packaging, transporting, and marketing of food and agriculture products. Mr. Ndashe, however, notes with sadness that agro-processing technologies that are simple to operate and manage still remain a challenge in Zambia on account of the fact that agro-processing machinery and equipment have not received the adequate support as deserved of such strategic inputs in the agro value chain. He says there is great need for government to widely invest in research, development and transfer of appropriate agro-processing technologies for key players. And officiating at the meeting, Ministry of Agriculture Permanent Secretary Songwayo Ziambo has thanked the JCTR for bringing together ministries, civil society organizations, research institutions, the media, and other stakeholders to reflect on how to enhance linkages between agriculture and manufacturing value addition for national development. In a speech read for him by Ananywa Mutemwa, Mr. Ziambo has implored all stakeholders to share their experiences, thoughts, and recommendations on how linkages can be enhanced between agriculture, value addition, and manufacturing at all levels for national development. Has been advised to realize that there is no politics at playing in the advice it's being given to take the hunger situation in the country more seriously. Movement for National Transformation MNT President Daniel Shimunza says his party, which has advised the government on the hunger situation, believes in consensual politics. Mr. Shimunza says that this entails that when it comes to national interest, it will put aside partisan politics and ensure that the Zambian people are taken care of. He has told QTV News that what his party has observed is that the Patriotic Front government has a weakness when it comes to protecting the dignity of the Zambian people. Mr. Shimunza has argued that this explains why, despite the government claiming that Zambia is food secure, people in some parts of the country are experiencing hunger.
In Southern Province particularly, people are starving and have no food. And when we speak like this is not politics. We are speaking on behalf of a constituency of people in Western Province, Southern Province, Central Province, Luapula and Northern Province that have been badly hit with failed crops. And so government must not politicize or weaponize the distribution of maize as well as milling. We believe as Movement for National Transformation in consensual politics. And when it comes to national interest, we'll put aside partisan politics and ensure that the Zambian people are taken care of. The dignity of a Zambian and human development has been one of the weakest points of the PF-led government, because our own people, if there's food security, cannot be suffering hunger in a country that is 55 years after independence. The fact that we know that the crop and the farming season did not do very well means that government must have proactive approaches to ensure that families are safeguarded from starvation and hunger. And so we urge the PF-led government to prioritize safeguarding the interests of the people in these affected areas.
The Lusaka City Council has given the developers of the infrastructure around Woodland Stadium 7 days to show cause why legal action should not be taken against them after interim inspections revealed that the developer was conducting demolition works for alterations to the existing structure without a permit from the council. Council Public Relations Manager George Sichimba says the ultimatum follows revelations of interim inspections that show that there was negligence on the part of the contractors, leading to the fatal accident that happened at the site on 19 July 2019. Meanwhile, the Lusaka City Council has prosecuted 24 street vendors in Lusaka Fast Track Court for contravening the statutory instrument number 12 of 2018. Mr. Chimba says 7 of the 24 vendors were slapped with 7 days community service, while 19 were fined amounts ranging from 100 kwacha to 150 kwacha, failure to which they will serve a custodial sentence of 2 to 3 weeks. Mr. Chimba says the vendors were apprehended from the Central Business District and other areas in the city.
The Lusaka City Council has given the developers of the shops around the Woodland Stadium, where there was that accident last year, 7 days in which to show cause why legal action should not be taken against them. This is because as a Lusaka City Council we have discovered that the constructions which were going on there did not have a blessing from Lusaka City Council. What I mean by this is that the developers did not apply for a permit for them to do the works that they were doing, and so it resulted in that accident. And the interim inspections revealed that there was gross negligence intent on the part of the contractor, and so all these things have been taken into considerations. And what we have done as Lusaka City Council is that we have halted all manner of constructions around that site until the matter is resolved. Lusaka City Council.
To end the news, we take a look at stories making headlines. Parliament has unanimously resolved to urge government to prohibit internet service providers from prescribing expiry dates on internet bundles. Vice President Inonge Wina has commissioned an ethanol processing plant in Chiwambo district that has been put up at a cost of over $9 million United States dollars. And political historian Bizek Piri has noted the need for stakeholder consensus in the constitution refinement process. On that note, we end the news. Pleasant viewing.